hardest power, hardest kind, hardest both of them combined. The strength to take a chance against, like there are ants inside your pants.
United we stand. Digimon Fusion. Hello and welcome to Chikyu Seijin ProtoMet, or Earth Alien ProtoMet. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about most of the longest running Digimon season. Digimon Cross Wars, or as it's known here in the US, Digimon Fusion. Now, I say most because I'm only going to be covering parts 1 and 2 of this series, and not part 3, because 1 and 2 are a continuous storyline, with 2 following immediately after 1, whereas 3 takes place a while after 2, so that's going to be another video. Also, for the sake of this video, I'm just mostly going to be using the dub terminology for a lot of the characters and stuff, so without further ado, let's get to the plot! An overly helpful boy, Mikey Kudo, encounters a dying creature named Shoutmon. Agreeing to help him, Mikey is given the fusion loader and transported to the digital world along with his friends, though they come by accident. There, Mikey learns that the digital world is divided into different zones, and the evil Bugra army seeks to conquer them all by gathering the code crowns that control the zones. With the help of Mikey and his friends, Shoutmon is determined to become the Digimon King and unite the world, and with the fusion loader he gains the ability to fuse with other Digimon to grow stronger. But in addition to the Bugra army, 2 other armies led by humans with fusion loaders also seek to collect the code crowns. The show kinda feels like an anime adaptation of a tactical RPG video game, which is not really my favorite type of video game, to be honest, though I can understand the appeal. And while this series isn't the first of the Digimon series to have fusion as an element, it is the first one to have it be a primary aspect of the series, rather than just an occasional gimmick. So it actually gets across the show's whole message of strength through unity and working together and all that. However, I do kind of wish that there were more variations, more combinations, beyond what they just have in the series. Occasionally the bad guys do have the ability to combine with the other bad guys, but it's not used very terribly often, so Also, this series predominantly takes place in the digital world, whereas most of the other seasons of Digimon, as far as I'm aware, at least take place in part in the real world, enough to kind of justify the whole kaiju aspect that this channel has. So, I wish there was a bit more in the human world, but I can kind of understand why they keep it in mostly in the digital world. And as a result, this series actually kind of feels similar to the Monster Rancher anime, with a human character going to this world full of monsters that are normal. And that's probably why I probably won't cover that anime on this show. Probably. Another gimmick the show uses is the Digimemories, or Digicards, which allow the characters to temporarily use the powers of specific Digimon. While this is a pretty nifty idea, it doesn't get used very much, to the point that it's easy to forget that they even have these things. But what really differentiates Part 1 from Part 2? Well, in Part 1, the characters travel to a number of interesting zones to gather the code crowns. But at the end of Part 1, the show's main villain, Bugramon, just straight up steals all the code crowns with a little effort. I'll get to that in a bit. In Part 2, since the digital world is mostly united under the villain's control, the characters travel to different lands to liberate them from the Dark Generals that control them. Part 1 also has so many different areas and villains trying to take over said areas that they never really feel fleshed out at all. Not even the 3 main generals of the Bugra army during Part 1 are very well developed. However, the Dark Generals in Part 2 are much better written, actually being kinda likable in some cases. To be honest, Bugramon's show of power at the end of Part 1 really kind of feels disappointing. I get that it does show just how much stronger he is compared to the other characters, but if he was this strong, why didn't he just go and collect all the code crowns by himself instead of letting his generals and the good guys gather them all up together? It really just kind of feels like he just cheats everybody out of all their hard work and causes a really hard reset for Part 2. Pretty disappointing in my eyes. The show's head writer, Ryu Sanju, has done some pretty good shows, including Kamen Rider Double. Unfortunately, this show is not one of their best work. And while there are a number of good aspects to this series, there's nothing really that stands out to make this series great. On the other hand, the more negative aspects, which I have covered, don't really ruin the experience. I just kind of feel that this series is. It's not so bad that I will tell you to avoid it, but it's not so good that I would honestly recommend it. It just kind of is there. For Earth Alien ProtoMet, this is me, ProtoMet. See ya.